So this is one of the coolest weapons I've seen in Warframe to date, and it's also not the most terrible thing in the game, but it does fall a little short in some aspects, I feel, which prompted me to spend, admittedly, way too much time tuning a variety of builds for the various ways you might want to play, ranging from a more casual setup that prioritizes feel to something that should be more than sufficient for Steel Path or Archimedia and such. Before all that though, can we just touch on the superficials for a bit? Like, how do you actually say this thing out loud? Purgator? Purgator? Or Purgator-E, if this was meant to be some sort of lead speak? I don't know. Why couldn't they just call it something like the AS-24 Devastator from Sierra Sam 3? They even look kinda the same. But while the Devastator is a 24 gauge auto shotgun, the Purgator is actually classified as a rifle, despite mentioning slug rounds in the description. And it gets better. The Purgator makes use of sniper ammo mutation, even though we've had both the rifle and shotgun variants in the game for a while now. Pretty confident for something that doesn't even have a scope. And here's a piece of concept art that might even indicate that the Purgator was going to be a grenade launcher of some sort at some point. Yeah, right, with that out of the way, let's cover some of the Purgator's characteristics. It's a weapon which you can acquire from Minerva Hendricks, one of the new Hex members recently introduced in the Techrot Encore update. Normally, I would like to engage with the community and their opinions, but I think asking about human Saren is a risk too far. Gooning not allowed. Okay, maybe just a tiny bit? The Purgator comes with a unique trait that has enemies leave a gas cloud upon death from direct hits. The gas cloud is just a single stack of gas status, which to me, it doesn't sound like anything special, but more on this a little later. This weapon is also blessed with terrible ammo economy, a maximum of 20 rounds with pickups only replenishing 2 at a time. Couple that with generally slow reload and fire rate, and you're looking at a weapon that will have its potential damage severely limited if you were to try and compensate for those shortcomings. You can still do incredible things though. But before that, I'd like to provide a brief summary on the gas elemental damage type, as I think it'll be helpful for you when you're thinking about how you want to approach building the Purgator. Gas is a secondary elemental type, which means it is a combination of 2 primary elements, in this case, heat and toxin. Each elemental damage type has its own unique status effect. The status effect for gas is called Gas Cloud. 1 stack of Gas Cloud deals 1 tick of damage per second to all enemies within a 3 meter radius. Additional stacks increase the radius by 0.3 meters, and each stack or instance has its own timer. The tick damage is calculated as follows. Modded base damage for dots, or the damage over time mechanic in this game, does not include physical and elemental damage bonuses like those from heavy trauma or cryo rounds, for example. Additional multipliers include stuff like modded critical damage and body part multipliers. These all stack multiplicatively, so they should be a priority when you're looking to increase the level of devastation your gas clouds can inflict. Faction damage bonuses, as you can see here, essentially apply twice, making faction damage mods very potent for status damage builds. And even though it's not shown here, something else that applies twice that people like to take advantage of a lot of the times is Rhino's Roar. Alright, the build section is going to be a little more lengthy than usual, lots of explanation and yapping, so be warned. Also, some of these builds are kinda expensive, I mean up to 6 formas, which is like half an egg in the US right now, but I'm gonna venture a guess that you guys are not hurting for forma like I am right now after a round of Coda weapons. Anyway, first up, here's a general setup that's centered around having the Purgator function in a way that feels good, at least to me. Kinda wanted to mimic the Devastator, and that starts with a good fire rate provided by Primed Shred. Speed trigger is even better, but you lose out on punch through. The rest of the build is basically boosting crit stats as much as possible to take out the general fodder in Warframe while relying on Hunter Munitions and Rifle Elementalist to help out with tougher units. I should also emphasize that this isn't exactly geared towards really high level Steel Path enemies. I just wanted something that felt fun to use, but also didn't entirely suck. The primary Crux Arcane I feel is the best fit here. The status chance boost could have been a whole lot better if it was multiplicative instead of additive with all the other mods that boost status, but the ammo efficiency buff, especially at max stacks, it does help with the ammo issues, and the Purgator, in my opinion, needs all the help it can get in that area. Of course, you can compensate in a variety of ways, like Proteus Dispensary for example, and then just go with a primary deadhead for more damage. To really make the best out of this setup, you are gonna need to be targeting weak points, ideally headshots, and pairing this with a frame with damage boosting abilities like Rhino's Roar can not only make quick work of chonky enemies, but can also turn that single stack of Gas Cloud into a neat crowd control strat, especially if you have something like Maga's Anomaly to help with yanking enemies close together. Sorry for the interruption, guys. Yeah, ads suck, especially on YouTube, but how about a helpful recommendation? I bet you all buy your games on Steam, which is great, but what if there's a way to get those games and some free stuff on the side? Well, all you gotta do is just buy them on GreenMan Gaming, where even if you get something at full price, you'll still receive benefits in the form of XP, which is part of their loyalty program. All the Steam keys sold here are also sourced directly from the publishers, so no middlemen or scammy nonsense. I've also found that sometimes there's better deals here than on even Steam, not to mention that a portion of any money spent on GreenMan Gaming does go towards ecosystem restoration initiatives, which is pretty cool to see. It's kinda nice to know that your dollar would go further than just ending up in some OnlyFans Thoughts bathtub. So the next time you're thinking about buying games, it's probably worth checking out GreenMan Gaming through the links in the description. Even just clicking on them to see what's on sale today does help out the channel a lot. So yeah, feel free to whitelist and save those links, save yourself some money, and get gaming today. Next up is a setup with more or less a similar idea to the first one, with just a couple of things different, namely the inclusion of semi-rifle cannonade, which pairs nicely with the critical delay here to negate its fire rate nerf, and primary deadhead instead of primary crux. Here's where I should explain my decision to go with hunter munitions yet again over internal bleeding, which at first glance seems like the obvious choice, what with the Purgator having impact at almost half of its damage distribution. You see, even with all the big status boosters like Hammer Shot, Rifle Aptitude, and 3 60/60 dual stat mods equipped, helping to increase the Purgator's status chance to around 85%, that's 5 mods there already by the way, and also improving the impact damage distribution to 65% up from a base of 45 with the help of Crash Course. This is of course to make impact status more likely than puncture. All that with internal bleeding even at 70% leaves you with a final probability that doesn't look all too great. Probably better off going with hunter munitions. You also got to keep in mind that with the internal bleeding route, that's 7 mods in total, leaving you with really only 1 slot to improve all the other aspects of the Purgator. This is why I feel the Purgator could have really used a slightly higher base status chance, but it is what it is. There are frames that can help boost status at least indirectly, like Citrine, but I wasn't sure if it was going to be worth testing, as that certainly would have made this video even more time consuming to make. Perhaps I'll ask Mr. Ween to test out some builds against level cap enemies and see if he can come up with something, which he kinda already did with this Ivara Prowl setup that maximizes crit stats along with lots of ability strength for Roar to turn that Gas Cloud into something more toxic than all the political subreddits in the current climate put together. I mean, it's pretty neat for holding choke points like this, but then the Purgator turns into something I feel is like more of a utility rather than a main weapon, if that makes sense. Nothing inherently bad with that. Of course, if all else fails, you can always turn to the King of Shotguns to save the day. No one actually calls this frame the King of Shotguns, I just felt it was appropriate for some reason. And not that the Purgator is a shotgun either, but I mean, come on, it shoots slugs. Why does this even use a sniper mods D? Here's a somewhat improved build from last time around for Harrow. I don't think it really matters too much as long as you've got sufficient survivability and a duration, as well as enough strength to ensure you can reliably hit the crit bonus cap on Covenant. Harrow's kit really does solve for the Purgator's weaknesses if you think about it. Fire rate is no longer an issue with Penance, and you can just mod for anything other than crit chance, as Covenant will have you covered there. Condemned will also make it real easy to target weak spots if you're using primary acuity. It's pretty nice. I just hope I don't have to make another video with Harrow again, because then it's just gonna be use Harrow to make everything good, which some of you out there won't have a problem with, I suppose, but gotta use all them frames. Feel free to leave comments down below, I'll try to get to as many as is feasible. Please do check out the links in the description, namely GreenMan Gaming and Ko-fi. Those do help out a lot, so much appreciate in advance. Otherwise, it's totally fine. I'll see you guys in the next one. Have a good day.